Rukpli Incursion 4 by Matt Edsan. Narrated by Matt Edsan. Chapter 1 Nemo Station, Cinder. Chief Medical Officer Cutler stood in front of the gurney. Stretched out before him was the first Klinto species he had ever encountered. It had a thin body with a big head. There were multiple wounds on its blue-skinned torso. One of his junior medical officers, Riley, stood beside him. "Sir, is it safe to be standing so close?" "I was told by the UFS Dauntless that they ran scans on the dead body and no toxins were detected," Cutler replied. "We should be safe." Riley nodded. The young woman had just been posted to Nemo Station, which was an orbital station that humanity had established a month ago. From Cutler's conversations with Riley, she had attended the medical academy on Eufra and had graduated a few months ago. To be posted out here in the colonies right after graduation was not unusual. Most of the students were told of those scenarios when they joined the medical academy. Better for them to realize the hard truth rather than expect a glamorous life on Eufra. The reality was that most of the human colonies needed a lot of medical personnel, especially as the colonies begin to grow and face newer alien viruses. During the attacks by the Rukpli, humanity had slowly begun building the components for Nemo Station on Cinder, a small human research colony. Once the Rukpli had withdrawn from Eufra, the go-ahead had been given to establish the orbital station. Although Cutler hadn't visited Armstrong Station, Nemo Station wasn't as big. Based on the images he had seen of Armstrong Station, Nemo Station was 1/3 of its size. Then again, Cinder was a small colony and its focus was on medical research. "Why didn't they send this body back to Armstrong Station?" Riley asked. "Now you're asking a good question," Cutler mused. "Why do you think they did that?" Riley paused for a long moment. Was it safer and efficient to unload the dead body on this orbital station? Cutler was pleased with his medical officer's response. "I believe so. Bringing a dead alien back to Armstrong Station would be risky, especially since no one really understands the Klinto species. There's also the issue of distance. The UFS Dauntless passed by Cinder a day ago, and this was the easiest place to leave the body for further analysis. We are also uniquely made to handle such alien creatures, because of our capabilities in medical research, right?" Cutler continued to be impressed by the young woman. When she had arrived here from Eufra, he had expected her to be worried. However, she had appeared confident and ready to take on the universe. Those are the kinds of people he needed on this orbital station and throughout the human colonies. "In case you're worried, I've stationed 2 guards outside the medical chamber," Cutler said. "I'm not worried, sir. This is why we work out here in the colonies." "Good, because we need to study this alien creature and find out how the Rukpli transformed it into a killing machine." "I read the report you sent me this morning," Riley stated. "This Klinto's name was Klipta. He apparently wanted to help us. And Klipta believes he was injected with enhancements and who knows whatever else." Cutler offered a single nod. "Which is astonishing, don't you think?" "How so?" "At one time, the Klinto species was a humanoid species like us, until the Rukpli invaded and enslaved them." "Exactly," Cutler said. "It's our job to find out what they did to Klipta. As you said, we know that he was injected with enhancement drugs. But I believe that's only the tip of the problem. There's much more inside of him." "Shouldn't we use the inner chamber?" Riley asked. Further deeper in the medical chamber was a smaller glass chamber. Its purpose was to handle those serious cases. Cutler shook his head. "Just ensure you wear your mask, gloves, and suit when we start cutting open this alien." With that, Cutler turned, walked over to a cabinet on the side and pulled down his suit, mask, and gloves. Despite his insistence everything was safe, he wasn't a fool. They were, after all, dealing with an alien creature. There could be any number of native toxins inside the Klinto species body that might cause harm to humans and that weren't detected by the scans. There was no need to take any risks. He turned to Riley, who had also put on her suit, mask, and gloves. "Ready?" Riley gave a single nod. 2 hours later, Cutler stood back. They had opened the male Klinto body section by section. Cutler had even given Riley the opportunity to cut into certain sections. The woman had relished the opportunity and done it methodically. It was shocking to see the internal organs in different places, and there were a few organs that they couldn't even identify. But that was to be expected when dealing with an alien body. The Klinto physiology was like nothing Cutler had ever seen. It was exhilarating. When Cutler had chosen to be a doctor, he had always wanted to study alien species. Never did he imagine he would get the chance so soon. Now they had to focus on identifying what was done to this body. "Sir, is that movement I see over there?" Riley asked. "Where?" "On the left." Cutler turned his gaze back to the dead body and his eyes widened. Something was crawling inside the body. He hadn't noticed it before. It must have been hidden waiting inside. "Get back now," Cutler shouted. Chapter 2, Nemo Station, Cinder. Lieutenant Aldrich walked down the corridor towards the mess hall. He passed by 2 of his soldiers who saluted. He returned the salute as he stepped inside, grabbed a plate, and joined the short queue. The soldier in front of him turned and smiled. Aldrich returned the smile. He flicked his eyes about the mess hall. At this hour, it was 1/3 full. Not surprising. Some people came in at different hours of the day, and some chose to use the food dispensers and eat their food in their quarters. Aldrich served some food on his plate, walked over to a table in the corner and sat down. At least the food on Nemo Station was good. He had been posted with half of his unit to the orbital station 1 month ago. Prior to that, Aldrich had been with another Marine unit on the surface of Cinder. During that time, he had routinely monitored the perimeter of the settlement. Then, Marine Captain Reynolds had ordered him to head to the orbital station. Aldrich would be the last to admit that he wasn't looking forward to being posted to the station, but orders were orders. The UFRA Defense Forces were stretched thin throughout the smaller human colonies, making it impossible to get down a new Marine unit to take charge of Nemo Station. Added to that was the recent spate of Rukpli incursions across 3 planets. Aldrich couldn't believe that the Rukpli had hit 3 planets one after another, and it seemed like humanity had no answer to the threat. As Aldrich dug into his food, he kept scanning the mess hall. Most of the people were scientists or soldiers. A voice boomed from his left. "Lieutenant?" Aldrich turned to face Private Malley. "Private, come and join me." Malley hesitated, but Aldrich pulled out a seat, forcing the man to sit down opposite him. "Did you eat already?" Aldrich asked as he gulped down another spoonful of the food. Malley offered a nod. "Yes, sir, I came in a bit earlier. At lunchtime, this place is too crowded." Aldrich agreed. Nemo Station only had 1 mess hall. Chalk it up to being a small orbital station. They didn't have the luxury of multiple mess halls. Outside of the operations center and other key departments, most of the station was occupied by quarters and laboratories. At times, it felt congested and downright queasy walking about the station. Despite that, Aldrich knew this was where he was posted, and he would have to make do with what was in front of him. "Sir, if I may speak freely," Malley said. Aldrich took a sip of his drink. "Go ahead, Private." "I heard the alien creature was brought on board the station." "You're correct. Captain Grisham felt we could analyze the body faster as we had a lot more medical equipment here on this vessel. We also had the medical personnel. And the alien creature is from the Klinto species." "I didn't know that." Aldrich wasn't surprised. The rumor mill on board the orbital station was active but didn't have all the necessary information. Nonetheless, he suspected many people, including those in this mess hall, were talking about the male Klinto body in the medical chamber. Many soldiers would query the rationale for the alien body being on the station. The scientists and medical personnel would not even question it because it made complete sense to them. "I got 2 soldiers standing guard outside of the medical chamber," Aldrich announced as he finished his plate of food. It was a filling meal and something he could get used to the longer he was stationed here. Somehow, the cooks posted to the orbital station were extraordinarily good. "Do you think the Rukpli will attack the station?" Malley asked. Aldrich cocked his head. Why would they? For the alien creature's body? Aldrich hadn't considered that possibility. He doubted even Captain Grisham had thought of it. Aldrich rubbed his chin. "I don't think so, since the body is dead. But we don't know if the Rukpli can track the dead Klinto, right?" Malley asked. Malley was asking intriguing questions and made Aldrich's heart start to thump. Did Captain Grisham consider these possibilities before he passed them the body? Ulrich wasn't sure. He needed to make a call to Captain Grisham. It was the best way to clear the air. Come on, I'm heading to the operations center, Ulrich said. Chapter 3. Medical Chamber, Nemo Station. Cutler flicked his eyes at the red emergency button on the far side of the medical chamber. He needed to press it, but there was a problem. The gurney with the dead Klinto's body was in between him and the button, and with it the creature inside the alien body. The front doors of the medical chamber also stood beside the emergency button. Riley nudged him. It's coming out of the body. Cutler was tempted to grab hold of his medical officer and try to calm her down. He stole a sideways glance at her and realized the woman was calm and focused. He should have known better. Riley seemed more intrigued by the creature than scared. Do you have a weapon? It's in the cabinet over there, Riley said. Again, the cabinet was also on the other side of the gurney. Cutler gritted his teeth. Then his gaze fell onto a long, slithering creature that fell to the ground right in front of the gurney. Blue in color, the creature kept moving about near the gurney. What is it? Riley whispered. Cutler nudged her to take a few steps back. He didn't know what was on the ground, but it was a threat. That's all he needed to know. The fact that he had come out of the male Klinto's body was shocking. It implied that the Rukpli not only injected enhancement drugs into the Klinto's body, but also something else. Cutler couldn't imagine why they hadn't encountered it when they were cutting into the male Klinto's body earlier. He could only presume it had been dormant until it got activated. Cutler stole a sideways glance and detected a trolley with some medical objects. Bring that over here. Riley didn't move at first, but then raced over and pulled the trolley towards them. Cutler studied the instruments and devices on the trolley. What are you looking for? Riley asked. Anything that could be a weapon. However, his choices were limited. Some of the instruments were too small to have any impact. Then his gaze fell on a large black device. That would have to do. He picked up the device. I think that's a good one, Riley mused, picking up a slightly smaller object. Cutler aimed his device at the slithering creature. He tightened his grip and threw it at the creature. The device shot out of his hands but missed the creature. Barely. It broke into pieces on impact and the creature began moving away from them. Let me try, Riley announced. Before Cutler could say a word, Riley got into position, aimed and threw her device. It missed by a larger mark, but the sound of it shattering on the ground forced the creature to move faster in a different direction away from the gurney. We need to stop it, Cutler admitted. Cutler took a few steps forward as the creature began picking up speed. It was moving faster than before. Cutler didn't know how that was even possible. It's heading to the cabinets over there, Riley pointed out. Cutler tracked the slithering creature. He couldn't let it leave the medical chamber. If it did escape, it could go anywhere on the orbital station, putting everyone in jeopardy. It then dawned on Cutler that he now was able to get to the emergency button. It was time to get help. He jumped to the emergency button and pressed on it. At the same time, a streak of light hit the panel at the front door. Where did that come from? Cutler asked. Riley pointed at the slithering creature. Chapter 4. Nemo Station, Cinder. Lieutenant Ulrich stepped into the operations center. 3 officers were stationed across the large console at the other end of the room. He walked over to the rightmost station and asked the officer to step aside. Ulrich took a seat and opened the comms to Captain Grisham on the UFS Dauntless. It took a few seconds before the connection went through. Grisham's voice flooded his headset. Lieutenant? Yes, Captain, Ulrich replied. I wanted to check in with you on something. Go ahead, Grisham said. Despite the UFS captain's friendly tone, Ulrich got the sense the man didn't like being disturbed. However, it was important. Ulrich didn't want to postpone it. Do we know if the Rukpli can track a dead Klinto body? Ulrich asked. Silence. That was not good. To be honest, we don't know much about all these things yet, Grisham admitted. While we are trying to fine-tune our sensors to the Klinto species DNA, even that isn't working as planned. You mean you can't identify living Rukpli by your sensors? Ulrich asked. Grisham had mentioned this part to him when he had arrived at Nemo Station and passed the dead Klinto body to them. Not as simple as we thought, Grisham said with a sigh. I believe we'll eventually get there, but we are still far from it. I think you know my concerns with the Klinto dead body, Captain, Ulrich stated, gazing back at Private Malley, who was taking in the rest of the operations center. It was probably Mally's first time stepping into the operations center since access was heavily restricted. Ulrich didn't mind having the young man here since he had brought up the question. I understand, Lieutenant, Grisham said. I understand your station has point defense cannons, right? Yes, Ulrich nodded. He dared not mention that the point defense cannons had yet to be utilized in a real scenario. His soldiers had run tests on it, but that was the extent of the experience with the weapons. Are your officers checking for anomalies? Grisham asked. Not yet, Ulrich replied. Get them to do that immediately, Grisham said. I'll have my sensor officers send the necessary details. Okay, Ulrich said and ended the comms. Talking to Captain Grisham hadn't yielded any new information, which was worrisome. The dead Klinto body could be like a magnet that attracts the Rukpli to the orbital station. He ordered the officers to start scanning for anomalies. If the Rukpli wanted, they could attack the orbital station. One of the officers turned to him. Lieutenant, we're getting an emergency alert. Ulrich turned around. From where? It's coming from the medical chamber, the officer replied. Ulrich tightened his jaw. His worst fear about the dead Klinto body appeared to be coming to fruition, but not in the way he had expected. He motioned to Mally, let's go now. Inside the lift, Mally turned to him. I tried opening a comms to the chief medical officer, but I can't seem to get through. Ulrich grimaced. Neither can I. Something was going on in the medical chamber. As the lift doors opened, Ulrich pulled out his small arms weapon and inspected it. This would do for now. Private, call in the reinforcements. Yes, sir. They sprinted down the corridor. Reaching the bend before the medical chamber, Ulrich came to a halt and motioned for Mally to move slowly. He didn't know what to expect around the bend, but he had to be ready for anything. Rounding the bend, he found two of his men trying to open the medical chamber doors. Ulrich came up to them. What's going on here? One of the soldiers turned to him. The doors are jammed. How's that possible? Ulrich demanded. The soldier shrugged. Stand back, Ulrich hollered. On my count, we're all going to fire at the door. Understood? The two soldiers and Mally nodded. 3, 2, 1, now. Chapter 5, Medical Chamber, Nemo Station. The door blasted open. Smoke filled the air. Ulrich didn't hesitate as he burst inside. Cutler, where are you? I'm here, sir, Cutler shouted. Ulrich looked to his left and found the chief medical officer and his assistant standing in one corner. The female medical officer jabbed a finger to the cabinets on the other side. It's over there. Ulrich looked confused. Lieutenant, the creature is on the floor, Cutler added. At the sound of his words, Ulrich leveled his weapon in front of him. His eyes scanned the dead alien body still on the gurney. What was the chief medical officer talking about? I don't understand. The woman jumped towards him. Something small crept out of the alien dead body once we cut it up. It's sentient and just now raised behind the cabinet. Ulrich had so many questions swirling around his head, but there was no time for it. Not now, at least. Instead, he turned his attention to the cabinet and motioned to Mally and his soldiers. They crept forward carefully. How big is it? It's quite small, but it appears to fire things, Cutler replied. Ulrich jerked his head back as he began to connect the dots. Is that creature what jammed the door? Yes, sir, the woman replied. Ulrich's gaze fell on the woman's name tag, Riley. He motioned to her. Stay back. Lieutenant, we need it alive, Cutler said. Ulrich ignored the chief medical officer's request. He still didn't even have a visual on the creature. Catching it alive was the last priority. Nonetheless, Ulrich kept that to himself. Cutler was as stubborn as you could get when he set his mind to something. And now wasn't the time to debate it with him. A sentient creature on the orbital station was a big breach in security, even if the creature was small. Riley leaned in and showed him her device. I captured this earlier. Ulrich glanced at the video footage and swallowed hard. The creature was small and slithering on the ground. Something that small wasn't going to be easy to capture or kill. By now, Ulrich and his men had reached the cabinet. Ulrich nudged Mally, who pushed one of the cabinets to the side. It toppled onto the ground with a loud thud. Inside of the cabinet, clanging noises emerged. However, Ulrich wasn't concerned about it. He looked at the ground. Nothing. Where is it? Ulrich kicked the other cabinet and it toppled to the other side. Again, there was nothing on the ground. Oh no, Cutler yelled. It's gone. Doctor, stay quiet, Ulrich hollered firmly. He had no time to deal with the chief medical officer. They had a threat on board the station. Mally jabbed a finger at the back wall. Sir, it's in the duct system. Aldrich gazed at the back panel. A small vent stood there. The vent was slightly open on the right side. Aldrich used his weapon to shove the vent covering to the side. It fell on the ground with a clanging sound to reveal a small passageway, too small for a human. The creature must have crawled inside. Aldrich bit his lip. I need a schematic of this duct system now. Mally holstered his weapon and pulled out his device. At the same time, one of the soldiers knelt beside the opening. Get away from, Aldrich began. But he was too late. A streak of light shot out of the passageway and hit the soldier in the chest. The soldier staggered backwards, clutching his chest, and fell to the ground. Aldrich fired his weapon repeatedly into the dark hole. Chapter 6. Operation Center, Nemo Station. Aldrich wiped the sweat off his brow. He couldn't believe that he had lost a man in the medical chamber. Whatever the creature had fired had been deadly to humans. It had created a wound in the soldier that had slowly expanded until he had died. Unfortunately, they had to leave the dead body there for now. It was too dangerous to study the wound. Not until the creature that was lurking around was captured or killed. Lieutenant, we need to find the creature, Cutler said. I'm aware of that, Doctor, Aldrich said. After the soldier had died in the medical chamber, Aldrich had ordered everyone to evacuate the medical chamber. To his relief, although the chief medical officer hadn't been pleased by the order, the man had complied. Aldrich had then ordered Mally and the remaining soldier to stand guard outside the medical chamber and ensure no one went in or out. Before leaving the medical chamber, Aldrich had put the vent cover back in place carefully. No further streaks of weapon fire had emerged from the hole. He had to presume that the creature had moved on into the network of ducts. Bring up a schematic of the duct system, Aldrich ordered. Yes, sir, the officer at the center station replied. The view screen changed and a detailed map of the duct network appeared. Aldrich frowned. It was a complex map. The creature could be anywhere in the orbital station. Aldrich turned to Cutler. Doctor, is there any way for us to track the creature? I might be able to help, Cutler replied. Aldrich stepped aside and walked to another station and opened the comms with Captain Grisham. Grisham's voice came through the headset. Lieutenant? Again, the man didn't sound happy to hear from him, but Aldrich didn't care. This was an urgent matter. Aldrich updated Grisham on the situation. Lieutenant, you need to neutralize that creature as soon as possible, Grisham mused. We're trying to locate it now, Aldrich said. Try harder, Grisham said. Aldrich struggled to control his emotions. It was as if Grisham was making this all out to be Aldrich's fault, but it wasn't. Not by a long shot. They wouldn't be in this situation if not for Captain Grisham. Why did he have to unload the dead alien body at Nemo Station? We are trying to, Captain, Aldrich said in an even voice. Since this creature is sentient, it means the Rukpli must be using it to control the Klinto body, Grisham said. We will proceed with caution for any future Klinto that we encounter. Keep me updated. With that, the comms ended. Aldrich was fuming, but he kept it inside of him. There was no point showing his frustration to the Operation Center crew. Despite that, he caught a glimpse of the chief medical officer briefly looking in his direction. Aldrich grimaced. Things were beginning to spiral out of control. Send out instructions for all individuals to return to their quarters immediately, Aldrich ordered. He needed to get the people into secure locations. Their quarters would have to do for now. It was the only way to minimize the death. Cutler approached him. Lieutenant, since that thing is sentient, it poses a grave danger to all of us. I'm aware, Doctor, Aldrich said. He didn't need the chief medical officer stating the obvious. What he needed was a way to track and destroy the creature. The longer that took, the greater the risk. He couldn't afford for anyone else to die on the orbital station. Despite the point defense cannons, this was still a medical and research facility. Aldrich turned to his officer. Have we tested the point defense cannons? Yes, sir, the officer replied. They are operational. What about the anomalies? Aldrich asked. Nothing yet, the officer replied. What's the status of the sensors to find that creature? Aldrich asked, his patience slowly wearing thin. I'm still working on it, the officer replied. Wait, sir, we have a warning. Aldrich's eyes narrowed. Where? Something bypassed the panel control and disabled it, the officer observed. That must be the creature, Cutler admitted. Send me the location, soldier, Aldrich said as he turned and began walking to the exit. Doctor, you're with me. Chapter 7, Riley's Quarters, Nemo Station. Riley had just finished a shower and changed her clothes. She kept recalling the events of the day. Working on the male Klinto's dead body had been exciting. Riley suspected she was probably the first medical officer to get such an opportunity. It was going to be something she would cherish for years to come. Riley sat down at her console and stared at the news from Ufra. There was nothing new. She was certain all the happenings on Nemo Station were being kept under wraps. Even the population down on Cinder would not be aware of it. She understood the reasoning. The different physiology of the Klinto species had been eye-opening. It was the first glimpse into an alien body, and Riley had taken as many images as she could with the goal that she would study them in the weeks ahead. For now, she had received the orders to stay in her quarters. She had wanted to join the chief medical officer to the operations center, but he had denied her request. The operations center was a restricted area and she suspected they didn't want too many people inside of it. Riley leaned back heavily in her chair and decided to watch any other medical news from Ufra. She had to pass the time and this was the best way to do it. A small clicking sound reached her ears. Her body stiffened. What was that? She listened again. Maybe she had been imagining it. Then, the smell of smoke invaded her nostrils. She pinched her nose and frowned. Her eyes went to the panel beside the door to her quarters. There was smoke coming from it. Then she saw it. The slithering creature. Riley jumped back a few steps. She squinted her eyes. It couldn't be. She blinked. But the creature was there on the ground near the front door. It must have been the one to cause the smoke. Riley glanced around looking for a weapon, but she couldn't find any. She opened the comms with the operations center. Yes, a voice said. Patch me through to Lieutenant Aldrich, Riley stated. The creature is in my quarters. Patching through now, the officer replied. Aldrich's voice filled her room. Riley, we're on our way. Is it there? Yes, Lieutenant, Riley said. I don't know how it found my quarters, but it's here. And it just disabled the front door panel. Stay calm and keep your distance from it, Aldrich said. Affirmative, Riley said, and ended the comms. She recalled how the creature had been able to kill one of the soldiers at close range. She jumped onto her bed, but kept her eyes fixed on the creature. So far, surprisingly, the creature hadn't moved. Riley frowned. Had the creature randomly arrived at her quarters? It was unlikely. The creature had somehow been able to figure out her quarters and appeared. That was the only thing Riley could conclude. It sounded crazy, but it was the most logical one. There are many quarters on level 2. The creature could have appeared in any of them. Not her one. It pointed to one thing. The creature was intelligent enough to figure things out. It must have recognized her from the medical chamber and then found its way here. The thought petrified Riley. Movement caught her eye. The creature was starting to move in her direction. A streak slammed against the side of the wall. Chapter 8, Level 2 Quarters, Nemo Station. Aldrich stepped out of the lift with the chief medical officer. When he had been put in contact with Medical Officer Riley, Aldrich had been stunned that the creature was in her quarters. It opened many questions, none of which he had time to deal with. Not now, at least. As they walked out of the lift, Cutler turned to him. How did that thing find Riley? Aldrich shrugged. I don't have any answers for you. It must have scanned Riley and found her quarters, Cutler continued. There's no other way. Which makes it more important to kill it, Aldrich said. Cutler grabbed him by the shoulder. Sir, we need it alive. Not possible, Aldrich scoffed. It would help us find a lot of information about how the Klinto are being controlled, Cutler insisted. Aldrich understood the man's reasoning. The technology and the sentient creature was beyond anything humanity had heard of, and the Rukpli species' use of it to control the Klinto was scary. If they could do it to the Klinto species, there was no stopping the Rukpli from doing it to humanity or any other species. Reaching Riley's quarters, Aldrich stopped at the door. What are you waiting for, Cutler? My staff's inside. The door's jammed, Aldrich said. Just blast through it. Aldrich rolled his eyes as he motioned to the chief medical officer to stand back. Aldrich aimed his weapon and fired at the panel repeatedly. Sparks shot out of the panel and the door slid open. Aldrich rushed in. Riley was standing on the edge of her bed. She pointed at the ground before her bed. The creature was there. Ulrich didn't hesitate. He fired. His shots hit their mark. A howl pierced the quarters as the tail end of the creature split from the rest of the body. A comms opened from the operations center. Lieutenant, we detected an anomaly. The vessel is uncloaking. Ulrich didn't have to guess it was the Rukpli. He aimed his weapon again at the creature. Time to finish it off. There was no chance that Ulrich was going to let this thing remain on his station. But before he could do anything, a holographic projection appeared around the creature and it vanished from the ground. What happened? Cutler asked. Ulrich lowered his weapon and grimaced. They took it. Who? Riley asked. The Rukpli vessel that just appeared, Ulrich hummed. Cutler jabbed a finger at the tail end. At least I got something to analyze. Riley stepped onto the ground and stared at the small tail. Is it safe? It's been dismembered, Cutler remarked. Handle it carefully, Ulrich said. Chapter 9. Meeting Room, Nemo Station. Ulrich sat behind his desk. He was still upset with himself for letting the creature vanish from the orbital station. A buzz interrupted his thoughts. It was Captain Grisham. Lieutenant, I read your report, Grisham said. Any further sign of the Rukpli vessel? It left after picking up the creature. That means the sentient creature inside a Klinto is important to the Rukpli, Grisham said. They didn't want it falling into our hands. Ulrich agreed. My chief medical officer will try to analyze the tail part of it. Maybe there's some intelligence there that we can extract. Maybe. With that, the comms ended. Ulrich stared out at the viewport. The Rukpli menace was growing more complicated by the day. The end.